All right. Quentin, you're the first box.
So I have just been working on Rate My PDF. We got some nice rounds of feedback from our external experts on the score. Also, some of it was feedback on the look and feel of the Rate My PDF website, most of which we knew. Like it's just not very clear right now. And currently I built some stuff and I was iterating on it and I was like, this is taking too long because it takes me 5 to 10 minutes whenever I make a change to see the change reflected. So originally we were tying Rate My PDF such that you could install it on a DocAssemble server. You didn't need another server to run it on. But I'm going to just undo that. So it only runs by itself and it'll make it a lot easier to test and view live changes to the code. So shift gears to that because I think a couple hours there will pay off long term to be able to keep tweaking and changing the interface.
I forgot it was still doing 5 to 10 minutes. That's like could have been like switch a few lines in the Docker file, and then it wouldn't be 5 to 10 minutes. It'd be like 30 seconds, but that's still kind of long. So the changes we're doing is definitely necessary. But I didn't realize you had been waiting 5 minutes this whole time. That was a much
Maybe
easier.
I'm exaggerating a little bit. It might be 2 to 3 instead of 5.
It's still no, I know exactly why it's taking so long because it's like installing all of Spacey every single time, and it doesn't need to. That could have been like a one line change. I'm sorry.
Oh, we could have just taken that out. I wasn't sure if it was still needed for anything else.
If you had added a line earlier in the Docker file, then like every time you build the Docker image, it caches each line individually. And so if you just moved the like really expensive Spacey install up one line, it doesn't have to do that every single time.
Okay.
So that's just, sorry, I didn't realize, I completely forgot that you were still running into that. That would have been a lot simpler to fix than all of this stuff you're trying to do right now.
Yeah, it's okay though, because what I'm realizing is like whenever I look at sample code, our environment is just so weird that it just makes it a lot slower to change anything. I'd rather have to learn fewer things to keep maintaining it. But we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm going to waste way more time doing this. But future me might thank me, even if present me has been working.
That's who we want to work for. Definitely don't want future me mad at me. That's future me king.
But that's pretty much it. Just recovering from DockerCon and LitCon. Other than that, it's kind of fun to switch gears in this. I think we can make some really quick progress to make things look nicer.
Oh, I have to check on something in the oven. We moved Passover to Saturday. Just a second.
Just I will let myself go and then I'll call in Michelle.
Okay, great. All right. So me, I've been working on finally implemented that bug fix for the bug Caroline was experiencing on her tests where DocAssemble would somehow cache a project while appearing to delete it by doing the unique project name, like you suggested, Quentin. And so finally implemented that and published that. I'm working on, I just wanted to do a couple improvements to the setup interview before moving on to some other stuff. I'm not exactly sure like what I'm prioritizing next. It might be documentation because some of the newer stuff hasn't been documented and there's some other documentation that I think needed updating. Yes, not much. DockerCon was really fun. So was the Lit Lab conference. I was really whatever work y'all did to make that happen. Super grateful. That was
fun.
That was great. Yeah. Yes. So that should be good. And if folks have, and I took a look at, I don't know if you saw Quentin, I took a look at that date formatting, the CSS that was going on, and I gave some feedback on that. If you want, I can't hear you, but if you want, I can implement that if I know what result you want, I can implement a change. So it's pretty easy.
Sure, yeah, up to you. I didn't realize there was still like custom padding there. I thought we had gotten rid of that, but decided to rebuild it.
Well,
I'll have to look at it, and it was probably just a different CSS file than I thought was changing. That's probably what it was. Yeah, you're free to also. Thank you for finding the issue and something we can fix.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know if you want to get rid of all the custom padding, or if you want to just go back to the values that Bootstrap, like just say what you want and I'll do it. I just don't know.
I think what happened is that Theory and Principle did that design and they made all of the inputs larger, and they also had custom padding. And I never actually really liked a lot of their custom stuff. I think the input sizes are now back to the default.
Okay.
And probably the padding should go back to the default too. So we can remove all the custom padding. In other words,
Sure.
to my mind.
Easy fix. Okay. Yes. So yeah, open to thoughts and feelings. All right.
There's just thoughts and feelings about, I missed that part.
Then there's a widget for the date change widget.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a server app that had run into an issue with it that turns out to just be custom CSS. Then Michelle intended.
All right.
And if there are any priorities folks have, then I would love to hear them, and I can consider them in kind of the picture of the to-dos I have lined up for myself. All right. That's it.
All right. Everyone will be happy to know that the Simus did not burn, and I remembered to turn off the oven after I took it out, although not immediately. Bryce.
Not a ton. In everyone else's pivots, I too am also pivoting and doing a lot of e-filing stuff. It's making progress. Just every time I touch the e-filing stuff, it moves slowly. That's really it.
And I have been having, so all the playing around I've been doing with LLM stuff, I think is now starting to bear like actual productive fruit. And I now think that it's sort of sad because I feel like I had a very clear traditional ML approach to doing a couple of things that now just is obsolete, is now just not necessary. Except for the fact that then we wouldn't have to pay anyone for some of the stuff. So I think that the next thing would be we should start looking at some of the open source LLMs, see if they can replicate some of the behavior we have. But basically, a couple of the functions in the form fixer that were going to require a lot of training data and stuff, I think I think I can write them in like a couple hours. So that's the relabel, the normalized fields, and then the reorder, the screen separation one, and Quentin was the one who got the idea for the screen separation one. But yeah, I've been doing playing, and like there's just like so much that you can do if you can just do a quick check, like the reformatting, just like turning things into JSON and extracting values and translating from one dictionary with one set of keys to another set of keys, like some just stuff that would have sort of been hard before is not hard now. And the tolerance is such that like it's okay if it's a little wrong, right? So that's the main thing. If it was had to be exact, then, but I think we can work in some workflows that allow people to do it. I guess the I'm feeling lucky button seems like more and more. What was your description, Bryce? I feeling lucky to.
We ended up like Turbo Blast or something.
Oh yeah, Turbo. Yeah, Turbo versus
Turbo mode.
Turbo mode. That's right. So yeah, I had one question for you, Bryce, though, which is it's not quite a blocker, but since I have you, I'll just ask.
Sure.
If I want to get the text extracted from the PDF, but have a field. Like it was, so it's like word, field, word. but with all the fields. Can I get that, or do I have to like find the fields with the context windows and expand the windows to fill the whole? What's the easiest way, I guess, to get a string, which is the text from the PDF,
And
with
then
the with some
like
placeholder saying
underscores.
where the fields were?
Yeah, so it's the only thing we have already. I don't think expanding the like starting with the fields and getting all the text around it is quite what you want. But
Yeah.
I also, well, it's not the whole thing. It might be what you want. What are you using that for?
All I need is I just need a string with a string and then a thing that indicates where in the string the field is, and then continuing the string, and then where in the field the string is, and then.
Well, no. Like, what is this? This is stuff that's going to like ChatGPT
Yeah.
or something. And do you? I guess if you, so that would actually probably work okay if you wanted, if you're just doing per field. If you think it
Yeah, I
would
need
work
the
better,
whole document. I want the whole document. That's
okay, yeah. If you got the whole document, then it would be a little harder. I think one of the things that I did got like the location of each word, and we just have to sort of like find the location of each
Well,
element and put that in
yeah.
there too.
With the individual ones,
I'm
could
sorry.
I just expand the windows out till they overlap and then see where they overlap and stitch them? Like, does it
You
stay
could.
in
That
the
would
string?
it would miss entire pages if there's no fields on a page, and that also feels
Yeah.
a lot more
Yeah.
complicated than
Yeah,
just
okay.
going letter by letter. Yeah, no, it's mostly just hard because like PDF store them completely separately.
I
There's
know.
no
Yeah,
actual
that's why I was
association
curious.
between the two. So
Is the idea that like you're using the whole page to figure out the ordering? You're using that as like a strong signal for the
It's
ordering of the fields.
Not for the ordering, for the naming and definition of the fields. So the
You think
key
the whole
thing.
page is the whole interview's text is what you need for that.
Yeah. Otherwise,
Could
it'll
you
just be like variable.
Could you just do it in two separate parts of the query? Like, hey, here's the whole text of this document. Here's the field with the context of the field. And have both pieces. That's something that you can do now.
Yeah, I guess that goes back to the stitching. I guess that actually would be I could just do that programmatically with the stitching, and it wouldn't miss pages because I could just take the entire text and then I could just take the field from around it. Now, does the field bit, when it gives you the context, does it tell you stuff that's to the left and right, or does it just tell you the stuff that's like around?
I get where it is. So I do get like when I look at the field and get all the stuff around it, it gets everything that's around it, and I think it actually gets the location. I think I just discard it though. And so the stitching thing could work. It would just it might miss some pages, and as long as that's okay.
Well, it wouldn't miss pages if I just took the text from the entire thing and then basically said, plop this in the text. Right?
Oh, yeah. You're right. I do think that's probably the best way to do it.
Yeah.
It's definitely doable. I probably am thinking too in depth about how exactly to write the function, but I think that is the right way to go about it.
Okay. So then I already have the text extract. That's simple. So then the question is going from the text extract to get the context, and so I'll just look for the function that the field naming function has. It calls the thing that gets the context.
Yes. I refactored some of this recently, and I think, and I'm trying to see if there's any. I don't know. I don't think there's any like out of the box like given a field, get the stuff around it. The closest thing is probably there's the improve names with surrounding text function, which gives you a list of right. It looks like if you look both how that function is being called and what it's doing inside, it's getting it should be like essentially like given the field, it gets the stuff around it, and then it's using the stuff around it to try to make the better name. But I think we just want how to get that.
I need to produce a string with the field and the text on either side of it that I can use to to match up within the context of the document.
Yep.
And David, you don't think that it's enough to just do it? Because before we thought the text around the field would be enough context, but you think that won't?
Well, it wasn't just the text around the field. So in the traditional ML model, it was several different signals. That was one of the strongest one, was just the text around the field. But then it also was the category of the form. It was the previous fields. It was where in the form it was. So there were a lot of different signals that were being baked in.
And you're thinking that
And
LLMs can get all of that just with the entire document.
yeah, well, the thing they can get is they can get what the prompt is basically, here is the, so I have a thing that I give it the text of a form and I say, find the, this is a form, it's fillable, place in brackets, a variable placeholder basically for all the places where someone is expected to enter data. And it can actually do it, depending on the format of the form, it can do an okay job at that. The problem is it can't always do an okay job at that, depending on the format of the form. And then the next trick is after you have that with those placeholders, then you say basically for each of those variable placeholders, give it a logical name in snake case, and then write a definition for what that name means. And that's the key part, because that gives a lot of semantic content for the variable. And so then what I have is I have something that, given a dictionary, that basically it produces a dictionary of the fields and their definitions based upon the text of the overall form. So even with the name change form, it was like, current name, new name, it was reasonably good. And with the, good enough for our purposes, which is to get the prototype. And then I can have our standard dictionary, which is, here is our naming convention of how we say things. This thing is, the user's name is blah, blah, blah. And I can actually then have it translate. I can say basically, for anything that's, for any of the items in the forms dictionary that also exist in our standard dictionary, replace the forms dictionary names with the standard dictionary names, and then just give me back the standard dictionary, but now with the new names. And so that basically is the field normalization. But it's leveraging, the way it's leveraging that is based upon the definitions. And the definitions, well, I suspect the way it's leveraging that is based upon the definitions. Because LLMs can't quite say it with the confidence, but I suspect it's based upon those definitions. But those definitions are only being produced because of the full context of the form, or I suspect that they're being produced as well as they are in the testing I've done because of the full context of the form. So I could try it with just the information around. That actually might be a good first pass. I think it's probably a good first pass.
There'll be some weird corner cases. Sometimes I see fields that are like at the top of a page and the actual instructions for the fields are at the bottom of the previous page. So like
right.
you'll have some corner cases like that, but it might be good enough. It'd be interesting to see.
Yeah. And if that's not good enough, then I could move towards what we were talking about, which is I can look to the sides and then stitch in. Because I know that will be good enough based upon my testing. I know if I can get a string with placeholders, then I know that I have what I need. So it's just getting, so the question is the open question is, if I look at a window around the fields, is it sufficient? I don't know the answer. I will test. It's all very exciting and weird and scary at the same time. But that was that. Got nothing else.
Yeah.
All right. Well, in that case,
I was gonna say, all to say, if you have any questions about the PDF stuff, feel free to ask. I wanted that to be more documented, but every time I try, I end up just changing it all.
Yeah. So it's something like improve field names is the name or something.
Yeah, it's like improve names with surrounding text, and it calls a bunch of like PDF specific things about getting the position of stuff. So.
And then at some point, it spits out, here's the surrounding text for that field.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I'll take a look at that. That might be enough. We will see. It's all, yeah. It's weird. It's like too easy. It's all too easy. It's all too easy.
Oh, a question I was going to ask you, because I don't actually, I'm still stuck on some of these things, like how mostly like I haven't actually gone back and looked at
Mhm.
the rate my PDF stuff, but I know for a while we were trying to do like, oh, get ChatGPT to, or like without GPT-3 or whatever, to give you a response back as like structured data that you could always read, and if it's
Yeah.
like, oh, if it's not this, return like abort always or something.
Yeah.
What do you do when it just doesn't seem to work sometimes? Because that was one of the things that we had set up.
Yeah.
It worked for some forms, but then people will upload forms, there's text in it, and it reads it fine, but it just says, oh, this isn't a form. And like, I don't quite know how to like debug that. Like, you just change random parts of the prompt. Like,
Yeah. Well, so there are like two different things. Like one is getting it to like report out like a responsible answer. I think the answer I'm zeroing in on with the stuff I've most recently been doing is that it requires several prompts. So the way I basically do it is I say take a so one of the things is if you ask it questions or you give it an instruction to say like, tell me what this thing is. Sometimes it'll repeat back. It'll say if you say tell me what your name is, it might say my name is John Smith, right? And so there I tell it respond back in JSON with your output being the value of the key value pair and your key being output. And then even still what it'll do sometimes is it'll spit out the text output : and then the JSON string with the output. So, but you can get it. Oh, and I've got to go to my other call.
okay, sorry.
But basically, I ask it to do some structure, then I do some checking on that, and I see is there structured data in there that I can then get to, that actually is the answer to that I wanted, and then I do like a validation once I've got that what the answer was. Then I do validation on that answer as if it was appropriate. So then I do a thing which is like, this was a name, and then I said output your name, and then I get the name through the structured data, so I know I just have the name, and I say, is name a name under the definitions above, and so there's like a second quality check. So it's sort of like and it's sort of a slightly different question than I think you were asking. You were asking like how to make sure the output is good. I think they're related in that you could make it so that it's basically, if it gives you good structured output, that is the signal.
No, yeah, I think that's probably the better approach. Yeah. And would make sense. Okay.
And then you basically sort of see, so like if it's not good structured output, then you think it's bad. But I think we could definitely we can definitely work on that some.
Cool.
All right, I'm going to jump to the other call.
Sounds good. See you.
Bye all. Everything. Nothing else from anyone.
Shouldn't be, no.
All right. Have a great weekend, everyone. For anyone who's celebrating, happy Easter. We're still celebrating Passover, so happy Passover. Cheers.
See you.
See ya. All right.